This is an interview with Marcus Barksdale.
Hello, Leanna.
So, we are going to talk about a tiny house that Marcus is near completion on here in West Asheville in North Carolina. So, I'm going to ask you some questions about your tiny house, its design, and its construction, because all of it you've done by yourself.
For the most part, yes.
So, how big is this tiny house?
That depends on how you define big. The size is 12 feet wide by 20 feet long, which is only 240 square feet, but it is really tall, about 19-foot ceilings, with a vaulted main room and then a loft in the back that has high ceilings as well. So even though it's really tiny, to me it feels really quite large.
Right, and we're in your tiny house now, and it does feel plenty spacious. So, how did you have the idea to build a tiny house?
Well, I've been fascinated with the whole concept of what home means for most of my life. And a good friend years ago was really excited because she had a small house in Austin, Texas. And she wanted to build a tiny little structure in her backyard. And she showed me this great book that she had just found by Les Walker called Tiny, Tiny Houses. This book just had a series of very simple sketches along with historic photographs of some tiny houses that had been built, well over 100 years ago. And it just captured my imagination.
Neat. So, you saw that book when? How long ago was that?
That was probably in the late 1980s. And honestly, ever since then, I've been fascinated with the concept and I've wanted to do a home for myself as a tiny home.
So, about 20 years you've had this vision.
For about 20 years.
So, now you designed the structure yourself. You didn't use someone else's blueprints or plan. You created this design yourself?
That's right. I've been interested in drawing and design for a long time as well. And fortunately, through my profession as an engineer, have skills using AutoCAD software. So to just keep in practice, I would draw all kinds of buildings, big buildings, small buildings, funky buildings, very straight, narrow buildings, and all just to explore, shape, size, just different facets of what a building is. And in the process, learning how all the different pieces go together to construct a building. Just through practice, and I came up with all kinds of ideas, and then also refined those ideas based on how I recognize that I live my life.
So, what are some of the realizations you had as you were playing with different designs that helped you tweak this final design in a way that suits your lifestyle?
Well, I've really paid attention to how I live my life, how I spend my time throughout the day, and I find that during the daylight hours and even at night, I really enjoy being outside, and I try to spend as much time outside as I can. But even if it's, say, raining, I still want to be outside. Plus, when I am inside, I'm often reading, because I'd much prefer to read than watch television. And I also find that I'm reading at a desk as opposed to sprawling out in a large living room. And by paying attention to how I live my life and how I spend that time of the day and night, I came to realize that, gosh, I really only need one room, basically, besides the standard needs for cooking and hygiene. That's when I realized that I could fit in a tiny house and be plenty comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And the key to me is to keep a tiny house from becoming claustrophobic. I chose to make the ceilings a lot higher and have a loft so that while I have only one main room in this building, it looks expansive and it feels larger than some people may think it really is.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I think it certainly feels plenty large. So you did everything from digging the hole for the foundation, for the structure, to building the foundation, to doing the framing, to installing the drywall, to doing windows and doors, to putting on the siding. You had someone do the roof,
I did as much of the building as I could.
the bathrooms.
I did hire people to help me where I either needed help or needed their expertise. So, for example, my friend Bob and I hand dug the foundation, basically the hole for the crawl space in the footers. I did hire a person to help me do the concrete block foundation, and since I've never done it before and I was his helper, I did the stucco myself on the foundation. I did hire a framer to help me with erecting the wood frame I probably could have done it myself, but some of these boards are pretty long and heavy, and you really need two people from a safety standpoint. Plus, he was experienced, and it allowed us to build it quicker. But a lot of the details, like installing the windows, I did myself. All the miscellaneous pieces of framing, I did myself to get it prepared for the other trades. So I did hire an electrician. I hired a specialty company for the insulation because I did spray foam insulation to make it super energy efficient. I hired a company to do the drywall because drywall is quite a special art. I've done drywall before and I'm not very good at it. So it was worth extra money to just hire someone to do it right the first time and make it look good. But again, all the other little pieces from installing the doors and windows, the trim, interior and exterior, the siding, those kinds of things I did myself. I had a little bit of help. A neighbor down the street, Eric, was generous and offered to help me for a couple days with some exterior siding, and so we were able to tackle some really high places that I could not have done very easily by myself. But yeah, I would say on the whole I've done about 3/4 of the work myself.
It's pretty amazing. Tiling and the wood floors and everything.
The
It's
wood
really
floors
amazing.
myself, the tile in the bathroom, the cabinets, installed all those, all that stuff myself.
It's pretty cool. So I know you've put a lot of time into this, and probably your time is unquantifiable in terms of hours you've committed to this, because I know for many, many months you worked sun up to sundown, and then some if there was stuff that you could do otherwise. But excluding the hours you've spent working on this project, how much will it have cost you to have built this tiny house?
Well, I have a footprint of 240 square feet. I have a loft that's about 100 square feet, so think of it as, say, 340 square feet of living space.
Right.
And the building itself, in materials plus the labor that I've hired, has run, I think it's a pretty close estimate, of about probably $32,000, $33,000, something like that. I tried to save money where I could by buying, for example, some salvaged flooring. I also didn't skimp on other things, like I put in very good quality fixtures in the kitchen and the bathroom, and I bought very high energy efficient argon filled windows, things like that. And then I hired a drywall contractor who did a really good job, and then for example, splurged on the spray foam insulation, which compared to the standard fiberglass insulation is well more than twice the cost, but I still think it's going to be worth it in the long run, because I anticipate in the hardest winter that we can have here in Asheville, I'll probably only spend about $30 a month in electricity, maybe $50 at the most.
Because you'll be heating with your baseboard heaters.
Yeah, I have electric, radiant baseboard heaters.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. What has been the biggest delight in this project?
To me, the biggest delight has been the realization that the space I've created feels like I hoped it would feel. It just feels really good to me. From a deep bay window to a nice sized porch that has a constant breeze to an interior space that has some visual interest. The vaulted ceiling, the high window, bullnose or rounded corners on the interior walls, all those things add to a softness, a spaciousness.
It probably helps too to have other people admiring your work. I know your neighbors have commented on all the drive-bys and the gawking that's happening as people cruise down the street.
I think that has two reasons. First, I've had I
think everybody on the street has stopped by and talked to you about the project
over 4 dozen sets of people have stopped and literally come up and asked, "Can we see your house?" And everyone has just been really interested and really just captured by the concept of it being so tiny by traditional standards, yet looking so neat and feeling so big when they walk in. And it's been really exciting to have so much energy put out there by other people, total strangers for the most part.
Neat. You look really happy. You're glowing talking about your house.
It is fun. I've really enjoyed the process, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I've had people tell me that this is a great model. It would be really neat if more people sought to have smaller spaces, because it would free them up for a larger life.